Annually, Las Vegas receives less than 5 inches of precipitation. Seated in the heart of the Mojave Desert, average summertime temperature creeped past 100 degrees Fahrenheit. In 2021, Las Vegas recorded a record-breaking temperature of 116 degrees Fahrenheit. Because of the climate change, Earth's temperature has risen by 0.14 degrees Fahrenheit per decade since 1880. While that may seem like a small increase, it means a significant surge in accumulated heat. The substantial swell in the surface temperatures has impacted weather and climate conditions around the world. Las Vegas has never seen a worse drought, but this has not always been the case.
This is Allison, a conservation educator at the Springs Preserve.
So the Springs Preserve is essentially the birthplace of Las Vegas. We are the original site of springs in Las Vegas, which, being in a desert, is very important to be able to survive.
In 1829, a Mexican merchant, Antonio Armejo, found the spring that became known as the birthplace of Las Vegas. The spring's first water crisis was in 1940, when the aquifer was overdrafted, leading the city of Las Vegas to find a new source of water, the Colorado River. The Colorado River receives its water source from the melting snow and precipitation in the Rocky Mountains. 97% of the water coming from the Colorado River will end up in Lake Mead.
Wanting to understand water infrastructure systems better, our team interviewed Gil, a retired Southern Nevada Water Authority worker. Gil was an operator at the River Mountain Water Treatment Facility for over a decade.
The idea of this lake continuing to drop for the next 15 to 20 years is frightening, because the economic driver of this state is Las Vegas, is the gambling mecca that this community provides to Nevada. So if that happens to go away, Nevada itself will basically revert back to the 1900s.
Lake Mead is known as the lungs of Las Vegas, supplying 90% of the valley's water. Since 2000, Lake Mead's water level has dropped around 140 feet and showed no signs of stopping. Drought in the American Southwest has had an impact on Lake Mead's water level, and at the moment is only 37% full.
There is a compact on the Colorado River that each state gets so much water, and as they reach certain levels, they get reduced by a percentage. It's not being cut off. So what they'll end up having to do is, how will they use that water more efficiently? How will they ration that water? And so on and so forth. However, first primary on the river is always the Indian tribes, because they have primacy on the river and they will get their water.
So originally, when the dam was built and the water infrastructure was being put into place, 2 intake pipes were put into the lake to draw water and bring it here into Southern California and other places. One of those pipes is now sticking out of the water. It is no longer underwater and able to draw water. And over the last few years, the Las Vegas Valley Water District has built the 3rd intake, which was a multi-million-dollar project to drill a tunnel underneath Lake Mead over 1.5 miles long to the bottom of the lake so that we can continue to draw that water. So it's still a couple hundred feet underwater down there, and it has now been turned on as that first intake pipe has lost its water.
The water that flows in out of the Las Vegas Wash is located upstream of the intakes. There is a layer of water that floats, like literally floats on top of the lake water. And because it's warmer, it tends to stay there, but it's also harder to treat because of all the additional chemicals. The first intake that got exposed this past week, when the lake dropped below 1,050, they probably stopped using it when the lake level was about 1,060, 10 feet above the intake, because they didn't want to suck in any of that stuff. So they were primarily using the second intake. It does make it difficult. That's why we have incoming water quality instruments that tells us what's in the water. Temperature plays a big part in disinfection and treatment. So that is critical, and pH.
In 1983, Lake Mead reached a record high water level at 1,225 feet, and it now stands only at 1,055 feet. From the lake, the pumps are able to deliver 900 million gallons of water a day to the treatment facility plants. Arguably the most critical piece of infrastructure in the Las Vegas Valley, the Hoover Dam, is the key to harnessing the power of the Colorado River. The Hoover Dam was built to help with flooding, irrigation, and provide hydroelectric power. Life in the valley before the Hoover Dam was dependent upon the underground water that flowed beneath the city. The need for a newer, stronger, more reliable water source was evident. Coupled with the government funding and a plethora of possibilities locked within the waters of the Colorado River, construction began on a dam capable of serving both the power and water needs of the American Southwest. As water levels continue to drop, all the receiving entities will be forced to do more with less. Within the past decade, Las Vegas has become a shining example of what good water-saving technology looks like. This infrastructure is designed to conserve water, and Las Vegas does an excellent job of maintaining and installing new technology.
So as far as water conservation, Las Vegas is actually one of the top cities in the world that goes for recycling their water. So every drop of water that goes down a drain indoors is going to go right back to our lake to be reused and returned. So that is what we would call return flow credits, and we're one of the only places that is currently doing that.
Conservation efforts have been really pushed hard for at least the last 20 years. They started paying for people to pull out grass, which is outdoor decorative use of water, way back when. Even though we do have a large population here, relative to the population, as far as like with Phoenix, compared to Phoenix, we do tend to use more water here because the water is cheap. They are starting to propose a better conservation program. I know the city of Henderson, where I live in, has 3 tiers right now, and they're proposing a 4th. Tier 1 is for people like, my family and myself that barely use 5,000 gallons of water a month, because they don't measure below that. But above that, they start measuring, and it goes up exponentially. If you happen to reach tier 3, you are a heavy water user. A real heavy water user. You're going to pay the penalty for it.
Minimizing water waste outdoors is a critical aspect of conservation efforts. A unique feature of the Las Vegas built environment are the drainage channels that run like veins through the city. These cement water highways were installed in an attempt to catch every last drop of urban runoff, shallow groundwater, and reclaimed water. The channels guide water into the Las Vegas Wash, a 12-mile-long urban river which feeds most of the valley's excess water. While water conservation technologies in Las Vegas are excellent, the city continues to expand beyond its means, and its citizens are already hurting.
The foothills of the surrounding mountain ranges are being leveled and paved to make way for new suburban neighborhoods to accommodate the growing population. Balancing both growth and climate change has proven to be a daunting task. Backyards littered with pools and palm trees and fountains that spew millions of gallons of water each day make it hard to remember that this metropolis is seated in the middle of the Mojave Desert. We interviewed a Las Vegas native named Caesar to gain a realistic understanding of what it's truly like to live in Las Vegas.
Lately, obviously, our utility bills are usually always somewhere around like $80 a month. Obviously, once the summer hits, we're hitting like $200 a month. So it increases a lot, and especially in like convenience stores like 7-Eleven and all that type of stuff. Back then, I could get a bottle of water for like $1.20. Now it's like $3-4 just to get a bottle of water. And then they're usually just like the really nasty bottled waters, like the ones that are not purified that good.
Water filling stations are expensive, time-consuming, and drying up. Hard decisions will have to be made in order to survive in Sin City.
Do you find yourself having to choose between water and other things?
Oh yeah, all the time. So a lot of the times, a lot of the water isn't that great out here, especially with the drought. So I'll usually typically get a lemonade rather than a bottle of water, because the bottled waters are just disgusting out here.
Without access to an auxiliary source of water, i.e. bottled water, on a regular basis, they are going to be using water that, in my opinion, will be substandard.
The Clark County coroner totaled up 124 heat-related deaths in 2020. Exacerbated by a lack of water, we can expect to see an increase in heat-related deaths in the coming years, especially in vulnerable populations. So what's Plan B? As of now, vague contingency plans include activating straws deep within Lake Mead to continue to draw water, or constructing hundreds of miles of pipeline to tap into northern Nevada's underground water supply.
Such a pipeline would disrespect long-standing treaties with native tribes and tamper with a delicate desert ecosystem that's already struggling to adapt with the Earth's changing climate. The saying, "What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas," invokes a feeling of liberty and lights a hunger in the hearts of its inhabitants. Vegas is a city with an insatiable appetite, consuming resources at a rate which cannot be sustained forever.